Hello, India, and welcome to the panel on Have an Idea? Build with us the best global Web3 infra ecosystem. And here we have many people that you've already seen on stage. But as people are going in and out and seeing the different booths, we're going to start with a pretty basic question that often people who think they have an idea of what Web3 is don't get right. So to be sure we're all on the same page, and to show that Web3 is not just the metaverse and NFTs, we'll get some opinions of the panel of what they mean when they talk about Web3. Does anybody want to start? Hoon?
Yeah, sure, I'll start. So the fundamental values of Web3, the thing is, Web3 is just another way of expressing the internet or using the internet, which means it can do pretty much anything. There's no practical limits per se. So that's why I'm always hesitant on saying what is Web3 for, or what is it trying to solve? Like what problem does the internet try to solve, right? And a lot of misconceptions I think people have is that they feel like Web3 is a replacement for Web2. I don't think so. What is it really good for? Getting the community involved in it, projects that you want to not rely on a central authority, but in a decentralized way, creating agreements without having a third party. I think that's what one of the values of Web3 can bring amongst many more.
Anybody else want to give their opinion on Web3?
Sure. Yeah, I think for me it's obviously actually the possibility to create a fully decentralized, transparent and trustless internet. So actually changing a bit of the business model that we went from Web 2 being a very centralized place where sort of like Facebook, Google, Amazon is sort of in the control, to actually give the control back to the user and decentralized as much as you can. I think that's really key.
Well, for the sake of some controversy, I will add something. So if Web 2 is the autocracy of Facebook, Google, Amazon, then Web 3, as we have it today, is the plutocracy of whales. But what I want to see with Web 3 is actually the democratization of the internet. So that's my feeling for it. But I'm sure, yeah.
So basically overall for Web3 we're talking about democratization, decentralization, self-sovereignty and unstoppable tech?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I can agree with the unstoppable tech. I think it's a very nice term at the moment. What we're going through is having unstoppable technology, so yeah.
Not controlled by any one person.
Yeah, exactly that.
So to keep on a broad level before we go into Polkadot, how do you see blockchain generally contributing in the future?
I can start. I will speak from my project Robonomics. So we look at robots, and for our project we expect even more autonomous for cyber systems, cyber physical systems. Just a bit explanation. When Bitcoin begins, it's the first time when you actually can create a wallet for the robot and pay him money just in few minutes. With Ethereum, you can don't only pay money, but really create a smart contract to exactly make a contract with robot. For Polkadot, give a lot of other options like XM channel to talk with different blockchains. So in the future, we expect maybe, for example, collect all this data, all economical, technical stuff in the one unit token or something like this.
Great. Anybody else too? Oh, well, let's go straight then into Polkadot. Because everybody here is building on Polkadot. So my question is, why did you choose to build on Polkadot rather than any other blockchain network? And maybe when you start, in case people were going in and going out, if you just say who you are and what your network is so people can put a face to the network.
Sure, I can start. So I'm Dudley from Kill Protocol. I do developer relations. So I guess one of the fundamental things that we chose Polkadot for was the ability to do forkless upgrades. I think that's really one of the ideas to future-proofing blockchain technology realistically. It's not so burdensome to have this feature, and it makes it a lot easier for us to manage stack and so forth. And yeah. Before I say too much, I'll maybe pass it on.
So with Polkadot, I think apart from our history and journey of where we started, the primary reason that we wanted to build a governance platform or a protocol or a contributor identity layer here were to, one, there is no other blockchain that takes governance as its core principle. It's part of the code, it's part of the palette. You are open to decentralize from day one. You have a palette, you have a template that you can use. Obviously, there's no need to decentralize on day one, but the experimentation with governance that Polkadot allows, nobody else does, right? That's one of the reasons we started there. When we evolved further, we saw Polkadot ecosystem evolving in a way that no other ecosystem has or will possibly will. Because the applications here, unlike other ecosystems, nobody just trying to create a replica of the other thing. But the idea is, can you create specific use cases, specific problems that go beyond Web3 itself and solve for problems in Web2, right? These robonomics doing for what robots, IoT, there are a bunch of people. Aster's focus on building a lot of Web2 focused applications or solving for technological issues that exist in Web2 and bringing real world applications on board. Kill solving for the identity layer, right? All of these guys solving for problems that are not limited to Web3. It's not just another DEX or another NFT marketplace, but a very focused solution. That's where blockchain will eventually evolve to. And then the power of substrate obviously changes on why everybody of us wanted to build in this ecosystem, right? So that's...
So also add on to your initial question, why build on Polkadot, right? And I see this question first starting with why interoperability? Because Polkadot is all about interoperability, about shared security. And well, the answer is no ever blockchain will ever be the best. We can never have a perfect Ethereum killer, Solana killer, whatever killer you want to create, because it's not about competition. We're all trying to create and put our own perspective into this world through code. And I believe that every perspective should be respected. And this is where interoperability comes in. Because if you're focusing on this one value proposition and you know that by mixing with another value proposition of another chain, you can create something that's even better. And innovation happens by mixing two things. So this is the reason why we want multi-chain and interoperability. And now then that leads to the second question. Why Polkadot compared to, like Cosmos or other layer zero interoperability protocols? And for us, I think substrate is one of the biggest reason. Having forkless runtime upgrades, as he mentioned, makes a lot of sense. It makes things so much easier, but also it brings up another idea of having a growing, evolving platform without having a central organization manage and coordinate everything. So this is a very great opportunity to create something that you've never seen before. Shared security that's offered by Polkadot is also really great because for us, at least in Aster network, if we want to make dApp staking actually viable and let the network sustain, we need to allocate a lot of the rewards that usually you would go to the network maintainers, i.e. validators or miners, whatever consensus you're using. We can't have those because if we have to allocate so much tokens to them, then building a product, building a dApp is no longer viable. You're going to actually make more money by having a validator node than having dApps. But thanks to Polkadot's shared security, we're able to reallocate those rewards that would usually go to validators, because in Polkadot, instead of having validators, we have this thing called collators, which are just nodes that author blocks and just sends it to the relay chain in Polkadot. And these are much cheaper and easier to maintain. All they need is a good internet connection, really. And this is the reason why we're able to create something that's only possible on Aster, because it's Polkadot's security that provides this interoperability as the contract layer of Polkadot, and so much other value propositions that you don't even really know. We can only dream about it, and I'm really excited to let the community take over and give us what the real future is.
Maybe
Right.
if I'd like to add something to your interoperability, I think one of the things as well that comes about it is when we start communicating with each other as the parachain teams. The forklift runtime upgrades come into its own as well, because maybe we never thought about specific use cases that came around, but when we speak with the parachain teams that sit next to us here, we come up with new solutions, new ideas with them, and then we go, okay, if we were previously in another ecosystem, we may not be able to implement them, but now we can have those without jumping through so many hurdles. So again, it's just part of the ease of use and ease of collaborations that, we're communicating to each other, we're trying to figure out what are we trying to do together, and once we come up with these awesome ideas, we can actually start implementing them, and if we don't have the features necessary, we can start trying to build them and have that accessible to in the near future.
Yeah, I guess on the whole interoperability idea of Polkadot, of being able to work together and actually build really specific use cases, but use cases that are meant to work together. I think it's one of the most interesting things also, like when you go to a conference like this and actually talk to the rest of the team, all the teams building, the whole discussion becomes of like, hey, how can we work together? How can we actually help each other by the different products that everybody has, of like, hey, how can we combine them together and actually make even better products for the end user? So, of course, it's blockchain and it's difficult tech, but there are so many use cases out there that can actually just utilize different things from the different chains on Polkadot to make sure you can actually do what you're really, really good at, and then actually just have interoperability with the right chains that actually provides what they're really good at. So you actually create much more of an ecosystem of different chains that are meant to work together. So you have a whole collaborative ecosystem and infrastructure to actually build your products on.
Yeah, maybe also to include some things as well. It's also communities, right? So basically, each of us have our own unique community, and when we start collaborating it should also ripple down to the community. So the community, like newcomers who haven't been into the Polkadot ecosystem before, each part of our community is completely different and maybe not the same users in each. So when we start having that, the collaborations between the two communities or the multiple communities can start building up new ideas or seeing what we're building and go, okay, what business case can I build on top of this, and what parts of this can I use to build? So that's part of the whole building applications on top of not just Kilt for the identity, but like a star as well for the smart contracts and all this. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to add one, maybe technical aspect, and that's before Polkadot we had Ethereum, we could do smart contracts, but we always had to find a way how the users can pay the gas. And there is a fundamental problem to this, because the gas price is global. And this excludes the majority of humankind. So because the gas prices are just too high to be afforded by most humans. And so Polkadot can enable something else, because parachains are free to define their blockchain logic, their business logic as they want. They can charge gas, they don't have to. You still need some form of fee payment, but now you have a design freedom on how you want to do that, how you want to make sure that people are not just spamming the network or overusing the resources. And that is something that, sorry, I didn't say Alain from Encounter and Integrity, and now I'm maybe bringing the argument of Encounter. We were able, thanks to this technology, to implement purchasing power adjusted fees. You cannot do that on Ethereum. It's simply not possible because of how the protocol is built. And here we have the possibility of doing it. And this brings me to another aspect of it, which is non-technical. I have ranted about the plutocracy, but here in the Polkadot space, in this ecosystem, what I feel is that there is an understanding of the concept of common good. So there is a way how ideas get funded, and even if multiple teams try to do the same, plurality is welcomed here, and there are ways to fund projects who have no business model, but who have value for the ecosystem. So that's what keeps me in this ecosystem.
And when I agree with all that's already said, and just add when our company started working with Polkadot in 2019, we already have a working decision on Ethereum, and still working and good for some cases, but Polkadot give more flexibility instruments to build blockchain and really less price and fees for this. And with these options, now we create some new interesting things like IoT control, and I don't think that any one of you will try to launch your lamp at smart home if a transaction cost will be for you about $20. But in Polkadot, it's actually for free.
So the main points that we've raised so far were multi-chain, the interoperability, the fact that you can work and have support from your general community and each other, other builders. How do you see Web3 and Polkadot interacting with Web2? Because we have the different levels on Polkadot. Does somebody want to talk about the levels, the level 0, level 1, and level 2 to explain how that works?
Sure.
Just a broad overview, if there's anybody who doesn't know of the different levels on Polkadot and how even level 2 makes it easier to be on Web3 and integrate.
Well, I mean, basically this is a very tricky problem. We have seen a lot of silo building in Web3, so interoperability, if we talk interoperability in Polkadot, we mainly talk about interoperability inside the ecosystem. But obviously we also need to talk about how we talk with other chains, but actually you want to talk about Web2, and that is also a way, also something we need to talk about. And here I think it is very crucial, and another argument for Substrate as a technology, that Substrate has been built with light clients in mind from the beginning, and that's what allows Web2 to read and write to Web3 or to Substrate chains. And this is a still very underestimated aspect of this technology. We are unfortunately still using third-party gateways. Even when we use Web3, we are actually using Web2, which is a pity really, because we lose a lot of the advantages. But we might also need to talk about oracles, so bringing information in a trusted manner into Web3, from Web2 to Web3. And well, I don't want to No, I should stop talking because I would shill our own project, because we have an oracle out there anyway. So I'll stop talking here and hand over.
No, I guess I can build a bit on that one, but that also ends up talking a bit about my own project.
Let's keep it general.
So talk to a lot of the community here about Polymac and what we are doing on fundraising. And the usual analogy sort of that I hear is, so it's crowdfunding. And in some way or form, yes, it's crowdfunding, but if you look at what the crowdfunding is today, that you are you are engaging towards centralized intermediaries. It's the same thing when you go down to your bank, you put your money into your bank because you trust the bank. I think what we can do with Web3 is go out and actually you can do things because you actually trust the technology. You don't have to trust the chain, you can trust the technology that's actually there. So all of a sudden you can change the business models, so we don't end up having business models that's currently based on trust or maybe lack of choice, but that you actually have something where you can actually trust in technology and you can actually have people that can interact directly over a network without having to have this trusted intermediary to be sort of the judge in between of saying what you can actually transfer and what is right and what is wrong, because you can have everything directly on a decentralized and trustless blockchain.
Maybe I'll add to the idea of the Web 2 part and continue just going down this path. So I think what happens with the Web 2 developers, they intrinsically trust the development tools that they have anyway. But I think the problem there is that they don't really mind using something that has more of a sinister business model that provides takes data from the user and such forth, but they still use the tools. And I think it's our job to try to maybe elaborate why this technology is better or has like different benefits for this. And I think it's in our control and our way that we need to advocate to Web 2 developers and teams that, hey, this technology that you can build like trustless dApps on top of, and applications on top of it without having these sinister business models.
And also, people can build their apps on the blockchain, use blockchain without having blockchain in.
I think that goes down to the Hoon, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we are a smart contract platform, so we allow anyone to essentially access the Web3 space. But I don't know, like for me, to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the whole Web 2, Web 3 differentiation, because it sort of makes you feel like Web 3 is the next phase of the internet, which, okay, the technology is definitely bringing something new, so I'm not going to deny it. And marketing-wise, I'll probably parrot the same thing, but when it comes to practicality, like, I don't know, it just feels weird. Like, we're trying to make ourselves special by calling us Web 3 and like, oh, hey, we need to bring the Web 2 people to us, but that's not the point really. And we're not going to replace Web 2. It's still going to be there. Web 2 didn't replace Web 1. We still use HTML, CSS. It's going to be there for the end of time. Just like that, blockchain is another stack. Another part of the grander stack for any web applications, just another way to express the internet. And smart contracts are a great way to program and harness the raw power of what we call Web3. So this is the reason why, yeah, but still, I would say Web3, a little bit of a loaded term now.
So generally, we're just everybody together and making the web better.
Yeah, exactly.
The web.
Exactly. We're now, for the first time ever, we give people the option to be sovereign instead of being a slave to a master. And when I say slave and master, I'm referring to the client-server model. Yeah.
So some people will forever just find it easier to log in with Google, and others will use an identity service where they have control.
I mean, I find it convenient by logging with Google, but I do feel like there's benefits, business interest, if services like Google start to decentralize, because centralization is not scalable. You have to put more money to accommodate more users. And the more population, the population increases and more population has access to the internet, we're going to see a limit. And this is why Web3 is needed, not because blockchain is better or crypto or financial freedom or whatever. It's not even about sovereignty really, it's about scalability. Instead of relying on single server or multiple servers accessed by a single organization, we can have now interoperability between any entity, any server, and we can have representations that works in tandem with those distributed systems. Now it's like a whole new paradigm, really. We're just giving people an alternative, a better way to scale, and the whole server-client model is not going to change. The interaction is the same. The only difference is now anyone can become a server if they want. And that's the heart of P2P, right? Now what blockchain introduces, the question that blockchain answers is, if anyone can become the server, which server should you trust? And which server, or how should you incentivize people to maintain their own server? Well, there you go, that's how blockchains are operated. And smart contracts are just a great way to harness those powers directly without having to set up your own entirely new network with its own incentivization mechanism.
So, we're almost out of time. Does anybody want to add any last comments?
No, I think just to the previous conversation, right, very well mentioned that it's evolution of web and not web 1, web 2, web 3. I mean, we used to transact in cash. We moved to electronic modes of payment. Is blockchain a better infrastructure for facilitating payments? Definitely yes. Right. Similarly, any other application that you see, RWA tokenization or just tokenization of assets. Today, every asset is represented in one native currency, right? And the transactions, the settlement take a lot of time. Earlier, people used to trade stocks with papers. Now they use internet to trade stocks. Does blockchain provide a better backend infra to it? Definitely it does. We use Web 2 for a lot of our things we do, right? Calling it Web 2 for the differentiation, but it's a better infra at some places that we want to use. Tomorrow, a bunch of people are trying to solve and create like decentralized, much more cheaper, scalable architecture for backends, for hosting front ends, anything. People will move to that. It's not going to be about Web 2 or Web 3. It's just a better solution. So differentiation helps with marketing, but I think everybody is just trying to create a better web. And we are just trying to solve the same problem, that can we make technology faster, better and cheaper? Else nobody is going to use Web 3. Like, if the technology is not good enough for people to use or scale applications, who will use it? People will still stick to Web 2. I mean, centralization is a problem, control of power is a problem, but if the technology is not at par, I would not deploy a million user application on Web 3 if the infra does not support it, right? So that's the thing, we're evolving web, we're working together to build a better web, that's it.
Any last comments from this side of the panel? So generally, we're saying the future is a better internet for all. And that wraps it up for our panel today. Everybody here will be around tomorrow, so they will be on the floor and you can talk to them later. So thank you very much.